What's up everyone, this is John with Skate Better, and today we are doing the Adidas Liberty Cup shoe review. So why did I think of this shoe? Well, as you all know, I like cup soles, and I saw this was a cup sole. It's been around for a while, and basically, I just wanted to give it a shot. I was curious. Once again, there's not a lot of cup soles on the market, and then I think my wife got this shoe for like $35 on Amazon. So only this colorway was available in that price range. I didn't love the way this one looked in pictures, but in person, it actually looks really cool. And the green sole looked a lot cooler than I thought it would be, so I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. So starting off with the size, I got my normal size 8.5 that I skate in, and it was perfect. It fit really well. So I would say get your normal size and you should be okay. The fit of this shoe is really interesting, and I want you all to see it has a very wide toe box, and even this area here in the midfoot is really wide. I went ahead and measured this against some other Adidas shoes that I have. I'm gonna be trying the Copas next, so I have those, and that shoe was 3 3/4 inches here, and this one is about 4 inches. I think it might have even been a little bit over 4 inches wide, so that might not seem like a lot, but a ½ inch to an inch in a shoe this way is a huge difference. This is one of the widest shoes that I've ever skated in, and I have a really narrow foot, so that wasn't really working so great for me. But I will say, if you have a very wide foot or just a big foot in general, this might be like your favorite shoe. It might be a shoe that was made for you. The next thing I want to know about the fit is just that this part here, this area here, feels like it's really high up. So in other words, it feels like there's a lot of room for your foot to move up and down, which is also not an ideal thing in a skate shoe in my opinion. But I do have my footprint insoles that have a little bit of arch support, and that helped a little bit by boosting my foot up. But overall, once again, I think if you have like a thicker foot or a wider foot, this is gonna be a great shoe for you. If you have a super narrow foot or a foot that's super flat, this may or may not work. Just know that it almost felt like a boot because there was so much room in the toe box, like a pair of Timbs or something. So a lot of room in the toe box. Break-in time, I would say, I thought it was gonna take a while to break in. It was a little stiff at first because it's a leather, but it actually is a really malleable leather, and it didn't take long. I would say after like the second session, they felt pretty broke in, which is great. So next thing I want to talk about is the durability and the comfort of this shoe. Overall, comfort-wise, I would say it was pretty comfortable. It's a cup sole. What I do want to note in the way that it felt is you see how this piece that runs all the way around the shoe, it's almost like a molded cup. It makes sense, right? Because it's a cup sole, so your foot sits inside of that. What I want to say is, like in previous cup soles, this did not seem nearly as thick. It did seem like my foot is sitting inside something when I'm in a cup sole, but this feels like your foot is inside something that goes up a lot higher on the sides. So you do have like a little bit of stability on the bottom. However, it does feel very rigid because it's so thick. It's just like an interesting feeling. Almost feels like you're on like a small platform. The con would be if you roll your ankle in the shoe, and I did roll my ankle in this shoe a few times, it's a really hefty roll. It's not like you have a Vans canvas and it's a really thin thing here and your foot just like kind of rolls over in the canvas or the suede or whatever. It's like hard molded plastic, and when that hits and your ankle completely goes, like, you get the idea. It's not a pretty picture. Once again, I would say like safety wise, it did make me nervous. Doing certain tricks that I was landing, I was afraid to roll my ankle after I rolled it the first time. I think I've just rolled my ankle enough to this point to where it has extra elasticity in it, at least that's what they say, so it's not as bad as maybe it would be. But I'm just letting you all know that was like a very specific hazard that I noticed with this shoe that I don't notice with a lot of other shoes. But durability wise, getting back to the durability, it is a very durable shoe. I've been skating this shoe for about a month and a half, and you can see like it looks like pretty darn good for a month and a half. There's a little bit of wear and tear up here in the ollie spot. There's definitely this wear and tear on the side, and I do have some wear and tear on the toe box from flicking and things like that. But overall, I feel like I could just skate the shoe for another month easily and it would still last. This part here, this plastic cup that it comes in, is really durable. The last thing I would notice is a kind of cool feature is this little strip that runs along here. I'll show you on my switch shoe because I don't do a ton of switch, but there's a little bit of wear and tear, but this like line here is reflective, and I just thought that was kind of cool. I don't know why you would need that in a skate shoe. I'm not like skating in the middle of the night, but overall, it's pretty comfortable. It's a cup sole, right? That's what you'd expect. A little bit more comfort, maybe a little bit less board feel, and I'll be darned if this shoe isn't sturdy. Let's talk about impact. This isn't gonna take long. I didn't jump down a large amount of things in the shoe. I did go off a few banks and down a few banks, just like some basic ollies, and the impact feels great. Once again, it's a cup sole. I do expect it to have more impact than some of the other vulcanized shoes that I've skated. And this one had a pretty decent amount of impact protection. So this bottom piece is pretty thick. It does have an extra like shank here. It's like the squishy shank that feels really good if you land primo. And I did land primo a few times in this shoe. But yeah, impact-wise, I think I would give it an 8 out of 10. Not the most impact I've ever had, but certainly not the least. Definitely more towards the impact protective side. So I think if you are a gap skater, you can skate gaps in these shoes. And I know that a lot of pros do. So there you go. Next thing I want to talk about is the board feel and the flick of the shoe. Board feel is very, very minimum. It was worse than the Ave. It's one of the worst board feels I think I've experienced in a long time. And I think it has to do with the fact that this piece here that goes around is just so thick. I don't know, I didn't feel like my foot moved a lot in it. The sole does have a little bit of flexibility, but it's not nearly as flexible as a lot of the other soles that I've skated in shoes. It does have more rigidity to it. So just know that it doesn't have a lot of board feel. And the flick was also a problem for me. So most shoes, even if it's a cup sole, I can get it to flick after just working it out for a while. But this one was particularly difficult. There's really like nothing going on here. It's basically like a smooth surface, and because it's just kind of straight down, like it has such a straight profile, there's no like little edge or anything really to it, and it kind of rounds down here as well. It's just hard to catch that on something. And once again, I either had to put extra oomph into it, I had to move my foot into a spot that was different, or I had to flick really hard through the board to get it to rotate enough. So once again, flick, I would give it a lower score. I would give it like a 4 out of 10 for the flick. And the board feel, I would also give it like a solid 5. So it's not the worst thing ever. You can feel your board a little bit. I would not be doing super techie tricks in this shoe. So while I was making this video, I realized there's one more thing I wanted to add about the flick, specifically with heel flips. So I did practice some heel flips in this shoe. I'm not a huge heel flipper, I'm usually a kick flip guy, but I have to say, my heel flips were feeling pretty good. And I think that just has to do with the fact that the outsole is a little bit thicker in that heel area because of that plastic thing that wraps around. So I just wanted to add that in. Back to the review. So the next thing I want to talk about is just general pros and cons of this shoe. The first thing I want to note is it's a very breathable shoe. Being a leather shoe, I expected my foot to get super hot, and it does have a lot of holes here, which usually would be nothing to me, but I have to say they did do a good job of keeping the shoe ventilated, and my foot felt like it could breathe. It also has a little bit of like a mesh-like cushioning back here in the heel, if you can see that, which is really nice as well. The heel tab is nice and high and forward, so your foot does feel really secure when it's in this. However, I do have to note as a con that for me, having a really skinny foot, it did feel like my foot had a lot of room to kind of wiggle around. I tried to tighten this shoe down as much as I could, which brings me to my next kind of pro-con. It has such a beautiful, cushiony, puffy tongue. And I talk about this in a lot of my shoe reviews. I'm like, why not make a really cushiony, comfortable tongue? This shoe, beautiful, cushiony, squishy tongue. It goes all the way down to the bottom. Love that. However, with the lacing system they have up here, it's kind of weird. It's like this plastic lacing system. It just felt really, really difficult to get it tightened down. It's almost like it tightens this way, but it doesn't tighten down this way, if that makes sense. Like it doesn't tighten down, it just tightens in kind of. That didn't make my foot feel super secure either. But once again, after trial and error, just kind of working it, I was able to get it enough to where I could skate it and be relatively comfortable. As far as laces go, I didn't rip any laces in this shoe. I think it has a really good job of lace protection. You got like a little bit of like a leather flap under here, and then I think it's really just that they sit so high up on the shoe and it's such a wide shoe that like it's so far away from a lot of the things you would do that would rip a lace. So for me, no issues there. The last kind of pro-con I would mention would just be the tread on the bottom here. And it does seem to be losing its tread a little bit quicker than other shoes, like the Aves that I just skated. So I think I personally prefer more of like the hexagonal kind of tread that they offer. It's not horrible, but it wasn't great. So let's get down to the final question. Would I buy the shoe again? Would I skate this shoe again? I'll tell you what, I would be interested to try it in a suede version. I think if I had a really big foot, I maybe would give it another shot. But at the end of the day, it just felt really heavy and it felt really clunky. It's like a very clunky feeling shoe. And I think that just has to go back to the way that this cup is shaped and molded and the fact that it has kind of all this extra stuff going on that like pushes it out. It's unnecessarily heavy and bulky for me. It almost looks more like a style shoe that you would just wear around like a Reebok or something like that, or maybe like a court shoe or something like that I know companies put out with. But to me, it just doesn't really feel like a skate shoe. That mixed with the board feel, or the lack of board feel, it's just not a shoe for me. It's not a shoe that I would love to skate again. If you want something that looks cool and that is durable, this could be your shoe, especially like I said, if you have a thicker foot. I think you would probably enjoy this, and for like 35 bucks, if you can still find that deal, I mean, why not, right? So that's it. I'll leave my thoughts there. I did include some basic clips of me skating this shoe just so you can see what it looks like on the board. If you guys have any questions, feel free to dump those in the comments and I will respond. But that's it for now. Thanks so much. Take care.